Anjali Chhabria is a psychiatrist and psychotherapist, and she joins me live. Dr. Chhabria, thank you very much for your time, ma'am. Every once in a while, a story comes along that, that kind of gets under our skin. And this really is one of them. I've just read out some of the things that are available in the public domain that may or may not explain what could be the case here, ma'am. And I know as a professional, you would need much more time to try and understand the circumstances here. But off the cuff, what do you think, ma'am? What can you say about this case?
So first of all, it's very unfortunate whatever has happened, and I think it throws light on many issues. Even a divorce, or maybe an unwanted child, or the pressures. When a divorce is taking place regarding custody. Why does custody become such a long drawn battle? Now, whatever the case, a parent, and I won't say a mother, I would like to keep it gender neutral. A parent killing a child, of course it is alleged, right? Now, all the theories that you've given, okay, of course, a long drawn interview of I don't know how many days, will take to reveal actually what was the motive here. First of all, whether it was her, who was actually killed, or whether she had just sedated the child, we do not have the proof. But just going by what you have discussed, what happens in long drawn divorces where the child becomes, like a pawn, and people use the pawn to try and get whatever they want. Sometimes they actually forget about the child, and it's no longer about the child, right? So what happens is there can be anger, there can be revenge, there can be altruism, But for someone to say whether was she psychotic at the time she did it, of course the act seems really an act of dissociation, because this is not an act that anybody does. And that's why we're all talking about it. Okay, but for someone to be psychotic, there has to be much more. The person has to be out of touch with reality.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if somebody is caught murdering their own child or murdering someone else, they will not be able to cover up the scene so nicely, so beautifully, and for so long. So a person with psychosis will have other features. Okay. For example, there was this case many, many years ago about Raman Raghav, the murderer who would actually, he would stay there at the place of crime. And, he would talk to himself. He would respond to hallucinations, and he would continue to, hit the person even after the person had died. Now, that was psychosis. So that needed treatment. But of course, here in this case, there is a body found. There is cough syrup found. There is a tissue paper on which something is written. There is, someone who is very, very intelligent. And then the person is also trying to find, she's not devastated by the loss of the child visibly.
Yes.
She's gone around doing her duty. She's gone around doing her job, saying that, no, I don't want to take the taxi. I don't want to take the plane. I want to take the taxi, etc., etc. Right. So, of course, one really does not know what goes into the mind of a person. It's going to be beyond psychology, criminology, etc., to find out. And
Dr. Chhabria, what you just mentioned, the fact that Suchana sort of carried on with her work, apparently put her child in that suitcase and traveled with him in a car.
Right.
What does that sort of prima facie suggest to you? How does one explain that kind of disassociation? Because it's a terrible thing that has happened. One would imagine that even if such a crime, took place in a moment of insanity, and there is no indication of that, that there would be some kind of realization. Even that didn't apparently happen, ma'am.
Absolutely. So, one has to understand the personality. When people talk about mental health is poorly understood in our country. Now, and it covers everything. And what happens is, as psychiatrists, we cringe when such things come up and say, oh, was it because of mental health? Because what happens to people who are suffering from mental health conditions, they start wondering, are we going to do some things like that? But definitely, this is not somebody just falling mentally ill. Okay, this could be a personality. Now, of course, one needs to understand that there are personality disorders. And there are some people who might do anything to get what they want. They may manipulate any situation. So one will have to find out whether there was an underlying personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. Again, here, antisocial doesn't mean asocial. Asocial means people who do not like to talk to others. Antisocial means going against the law. So one will have to find out whether there was underlying all these things. Of
Yeah,
course, sometimes there are also substance abuse, which we do not know about, which may
very
make
true.
people act really differently, you know.
What,
So,
Dr. Chabria, one final question, and I do want to, this to not only be informative, but, the fact that we've got so many viewers, millions across the country, who are tuning in and watching this story and consuming every aspect of it, which is why we're the only channel that's, reporting it with all responsibility. I want to end by asking you, ma'am, Suchana, there was nothing extraordinary about her. She was a middle-class woman, working in a company, living in a colony, she had friends, active on social media, not a recluse, had a social life, a people like us kind of person. There were
right.
no obvious red flags of any kind, no, nothing awkward, nothing strange, nothing suspicious on the face of it. So I am
Right, right.
wondering, do we as a society need to sort of recalibrate how we're looking at people? Do we need to look for different kinds of red flags that people may have missed about Suchana?
So, see, first of all, what has happened is it has definitely also become a lonelier world. While
Yeah,
we all may be going around our jobs, doing everything. Okay, when people are under a lot of stress, okay, and for example, the stress of a whatever broken marriage,
yeah,
single child, and maybe sometimes also what happens is that the law in our country, especially where divorces are concerned, can really, make the best person into a beast, because it is frustrating. So maybe there were a lot of other factors that we do not know about, and we are only looking at the normal factors of her life, but loneliness and not having people to connect with, or not having people to even, talk to or help when you're going through something like this. Or I don't even know whether we as a society are we becoming so egotistical or so self-involved that I want something, I want everything, and I am going to get it, and I know how to get it, and that is the antisocial part of it. So there are lots of aspects, and the human brain is not really simple, and every human being is so different. So one will
yeah,
really have to understand what led to this crime. And again, we are just alleging that she committed the crime. It could
absolutely.
have been something else, you
Absolutely.
know.
And hopefully we'll know more going forward. It's an investigation that is continuing right now. Thank you, Dr. Chabria, for, helping us understand. I think all of us recognize that mental health and things like this are, we would much rather, brush these things under a carpet and not discuss
and
them.
and
It's
actually
much more.
that's